Welcome to the Gray Matters, where we discuss more than just hot topics and headlines of the day from a black man's perspective. We appreciate that we are not a monolith, and every subject deserves to be explored with nuance, giving a view from all sides of the culture. So, we're here to hopefully bring that to you every week with a little bit of nuance, some class, and some fun. Our panelists consist of three guys that are absolutely nothing alike, and you'll soon come to find out just how much we love each other in spite of our sometimes very big differences. I'm Billy Craig, and I'll be your moderator for the day. Coming to you from Delaware out here on the East Coast, the man in the middle is
Paul Wilson, coming to you from Portland.
And finally,
Andre Collins. We are here in Nashville, Tennessee.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and just get started since I have already messed up in the first minute. How about jump right? That's all right. How about we jump right in and get to something that is near and dear to all of our hearts. The Cleveland Browns. What in the entire double hockey sticks is going on there? Now, let's be fair. For those of you all don't know, I'm originally from Cincinnati, as is Paul and Andre. So that's actually how we know each other. We're all from the same community. We grew up in Forest Park. So we are, yes. And so as a result, there's no affinity. There's no natural affinity. There's frankly no affinity at all. I could care less about the Browns.
It's actually just Dane.
Exactly. Like there's nothing I love more than when the Browns lose, but they have become an interesting story, not only because they got good a little while there, but also they were a dumpster fire for so long. And
they've returned.
They have returned to dumpster fire status. Exactly.
They are literally snatching victory.
I can smell them from the 520 miles away that I am.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is this. Let's start here with Deshaun Watson. I don't want to just talk about it. Again, this is more than just, okay, do you believe in the 24 accusers that he got? I mean, the man had 66 massages. Let's move on from that. 66 whole massages in 17 months. I did the math. That's like a massage a week, except he had like one bye week or something. Like it was literally, no, I did the math. It was 1 week off.
Did you do his batting average for the assaults versus, because he's about batting 300 around there, right? Like 333.
Yeah, he going to the Hall of Fame if he a baseball player.
This man killing the game. Okay,
so you got a 1 in 3 chance of getting got if Deshaun Watson call you.
And that's assuming that we ain't got no repeat offenders in there. But that's not the point. What I want to ask is this. And I'll just start it out here. What do we make of the cognitive dissonance in our community about the fact that there are some who frankly refuse to call a spade a spade? Is that an issue where maybe, is this just about sports, or are people actually that naive? Or is there, like I said, some cognitive dissonance where people are just unwilling to accept the fact that this man got a real problem?
So, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, personally, I believe that we get caught up in the race dynamic of America so much and what, quote unquote, they get away with. And why can't we get away with it too? And I think that's where a lot of the stuff you're talking about that you hear about Deshaun and around Deshaun is from a lot of men that disturbs us.
Right.
Go ahead. I was going to say, well, you got that part. You got that layer. But also, I mean, this, I know this is taboo to bring up, but this kind of has this R. Kelly effect, right? Where in the Bill Cosby, like all of this kind of groups together.
He is not as good at R. Kelly.
Wow.
He's not.
Say that.
He hadn't made me dance once. But at the same time, like, we're separating the art from the artist. And we just call football. I mean, it's an entertainment business more than anything else. And do we have kind of a moral compass on what we put what we put people to entertain us on. Like R. Kelly, I'll still say I listen to his music. It is what it is. I'll still watch football players, like, because we only looking at Deshaun Watson, but like there's a whole lot of skeletons in closets that ain't being discovered. Like he didn't just start getting these massages last week. This went on for a while. Now once he decided he wanted to move on from the Texans, coincidentally the Texans decided to move on from him with these lawsuits. So I don't think they kept. I mean, they had their own NDA for him. Like they knew what was going on, but it wasn't until he decided he wanted to go that everything started coming out. So football has no right to try to play moral authority at this point. Now, do we have that responsibility as fans is the question.
Well, I'll say this. You're saying fans. I'll take it a step further. Let me just be totally honest here. And I'll break this down to two parts. Part one is I am so grateful that the Cincinnati Bengals did not need a quarterback. Because if the Cincinnati Bengals needed a quarterback and they went and got Deshaun Watson, I would be super conflicted about it, number one, because I'm still a fan. But let me take it. This is the part two of it for me, is that I have a difficult time, and I understand there's layers to this, but I have a difficult time with the idea that you can be an advocate for daughters and your wives and your mamas and all the women that you say you love and you care about and you protect, but you're not at least. I'm not saying you have to throw the man away. It's the same thing with Bill Cosby. I can separate the art from the offenses. However, it's what bothers me the most is that you're not even willing to call a spade a spade. Right, people are not even willing to call the man a repeat. Like it's predatory behavior, and it's like in the criminal justice system, you have different levels of offenses. You have assault, you have manslaughter, you have murder. I'm not willing to say that one is the same as the other. It does deserve the attention to give some nuance, but no, we have to still call it a crime, is all I'm saying.
Well, and that gets into I know we're not supposed to talk about specifics, but 66, though. Like,
exactly.
Like, just.
How about the James Harden? James Harden was in the same city throwing thousands of dollars at sex workers for almost a decade, and we never heard James Harden get brought up at anything.
Yeah. But I guess because I won't say it's smart either way, but like the whole thing, when you have, like, the one thing I always found out is like the more money you have, the smaller your circle's supposed to get, right?
Yeah.
This man had 66 people touching on his richness.
Strangers.
Like that's strangers, and it only take one.
No. But here's the thing, and he got a girlfriend.
He got a girlfriend. Well, he also has a team that can provide a massage therapist, on staff. So none of this makes sense other than him being a predator. Like that's the only thing.
She ain't going nowhere now either. She got 230 million reasons to stay.
Man,
listen to me. Browns. When I tell you, I'm a bodybuilder. I'm not even like some elite level professional bodybuilder on the major circuit doing the Mr. Olympia. I have a massage therapist that I go to a couple times a month because you do break your body down. I mean, I'm old and whatever, but the point is, there's massage therapists and then there are masseuses. Like, we need to learn the differences. Mm-hmm. A massage therapist, I'm not coming here to touch you that way. They tell you when you come in there, you're only supposed to basically take off whatever it is you don't, leave on whatever you don't want me to touch. And the point is, he knows he knows what he's doing. Somebody around him knows what he's doing. As far as I'm concerned, the Texans failed him, his manager, his agent, all the adults around him failed him.
How do we let Dabo get off?
Is that
Dabo
pun intended? Like, yeah, like
maybe Dabo taught him.
I'm just saying that's my point. I said pun intended. How do you let Dabo get off? That's the whole idea. Dabo, all of and this goes back to what you and I have talked about for years, Paul, with Jameis Winston. Mm-hmm. There's too many enablers, and then they end up coming down hard on the athlete who don't know no better. Let's just be honest. Many of them come from environments where they have been underexposed. Okay.
But
So somebody has to be able to tell them, listen, if you do it now, you did it knowing that this ain't gonna work out well for you in the end. I'm telling you.
Well, let's not forget Deshaun is also a kid who grew up in one of them Warwick Dunn houses.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we want him. We don't want to believe this
because we want him to win. It's hard for me. It hurts that it's true, just like it hurts that Bill Cosby. It hurts that it's true because we want to admire and respect you. We want you to be a winner because of all that you've overcome.
Well, it becomes down to the question of, is he a good person that did some bad things, or is he an evil person that happened to do some good? Because on the surface, it looks like he's likable. Like he, gives money to charity. He does all these different things, but
most deviants are.
Yeah.
Fair point.
Unfortunately.
Fair point.
And I'll even say it like this, Andre. In my view, and maybe this is just my own personal perspective, but I look at him, I'm literally old enough to be his dad. I look at him like a kid. And so I don't like throwing anybody away. I don't like the idea. I told Paul about this with Jameis. I don't like throwing kids away. When you're 30-something years old, that's a little bit different. You're in your 40s or something like that. Right. He's still a kid to me. I know that legally he's not a kid, but he is still a kid. And as long as he actually has the willingness to do better, I'm all for it. I'll support him, but you got to own it, man. 66 in 17 months. Oh no, you got to own that.
Yeah.
He should have just cut the check.
And check would have made this a whole lot easier. Check would have made it a whole lot
Real quick before we move on, though, Baker Mayfield. What you got, Paul? Come on, that's your boy. Speak on it. Because they in a lurch.
In a perfect world, because and this has nothing to do with how I feel about Deshaun.
Right.
Or Baker.
Right.
It has everything to do with how I feel about the Browns as an organization, as a native Cincinnatian. In a perfect world, Deshaun Watson can't play. They're forced to call Baker Mayfield up. He takes them all the way to the AFC Championship game. They lose to the Bengals. Deshaun Watson gets arrested and can no longer play. They're on the hook for this $230 million.
And Baker walks.
And
get all the money and go play for the 49ers or something.
Yeah.
Now that's sweet. That's a dream.
I just want to know.
That's utopia.
The two things I want to know are the background check that the Browns did. Like, I still need details of that. And I also need to know, it's scarily, I want to see what Deshaun Watson's search browser history looks like, because you found 66, dog. You found that. I like, what does he just sit there and scroll through and be like, hey, who does massages? Like, we get into the weird side of the internet with him. That's
all I'm gonna tell you is this: as an IT professional for the past 21 years, let me assure you of this: you do not want to see that man's browser history.
No,
walk away, run,
bruh.
You talking about burning my eyes out? Just pour bleach and ammonia in them things.
Want to leave you I want to know. I want to know how they said we need an adult in the room, and then went and found a man with 20 plus sexual assault allegations,
and growing,
and said we did our due diligence. I don't know how you can justify claiming that Deshaun Watson is more mature than Baker Mayfield.
Wow.
But they in it now. They in the big lie now. We talking about the real big lie. They in it now.
Right.
They got to swim with it.
Yeah.
Whatever happens, they got to swim with it.
Well, listen, let's leave that right there. And let's move on to the next one, which is Father's Day is coming up on Sunday. Shout out, it's also Juneteenth, and I'm going to have a minute to say something about that as well. But when you think of Father's Day, obviously it's something that's special for anybody that, for various different reasons. It's always special. I know as a father, for me, it takes on a totally different shape, not only because I still have my father, he's still alive and I talk to him, and, he still gets on my nerves from time to time. Like, it's, he's still Pop, he's still my dad. but also I have my own kids, and so it means something to me. But I say all this simply to ask it this way: when we think about Father's Day, how do you feel about the fact that there's this kind of slow underground movement out there for women who are the primary parents or the ones who are they call them single moms that are taking it upon themselves to celebrate Father's Day for themselves as well, even though they're not a dad? And I want to start with Paul.
Well, this is an interesting concept for me because I was raised by a single mother, not because my dad was a deadbeat, because he was literally dead. So my mother raised me by herself. And growing up, I bought her Father's Day cards and Mother's Day cards.
Right.
As I got older and I had my own kids, I stopped doing that shit because ain't no woman a father. You got to be a man to be a father.
Right.
And I would say that in addition to that, a lot of women who call themselves single mothers should stop. If he gets picked up on the weekends or she gets picked up on the weekends, you're not a single parent.
Or if they have him for the summer, or he's around the corner, or yeah, right, yeah,
they pick him up from school. If he's involved or she's involved, you're not a single mother.
Right.
You are a single woman who has a child, but you're not a single mother.
Part of this, and I'm treading lightly on it because I have the utmost respect for moms and the jobs that they do, and it's an amazing thing, right? But part of this is like the victimhood, like just it's a much, it's a lot. I mean, I get it as a child, if you want to, like, as you want to celebrate your mom, like, hey, I get it, like my father wasn't here, and I want to show you appreciation. That's completely different than a woman going out and seeking, like, I need Father's Day cards because I was the dad and the mom, and like, no, you wasn't. You weren't. You, by definition, literally, you weren't the father. So it's a dicey subject, but like, I hate to like just playing the victim, like, oh, this is it. At least that's the way it comes across to me, is that I had to do. And some of these people who claim they had to do is because you ran the person off that was trying to help. Like, if you keep your child's father away, like, you don't get to claim that you had to play the father. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, you didn't have to. This is a choice that either bitterness or some other, capacity made. You made a choice that this was going to be the life that you lived. Right or wrong, whatever it is, but like, you don't get to act like, oh, I had to play the father role, when there's a perfectly good man sitting there wanting to play father, but you wanted to go through the court systems and nitpick and do all these other things to keep him away.
You're literally saying, like, what's that saying? Hurt people hurt people. Because at the end of the day, like, and I love my wife, and I'm grateful that I'm in a situation where I don't even have to make those choices, because my wife comes home, I come home every day, and we're working it out. But a lot of times the hard, ugly reality that nobody wants to own is the fact that you legit don't want to co-parent in a healthy way because you're still mad about the relationship not working. You still got some hangups about the relationship not working. It's like, well, if he don't want me, then, and I'll say it this way, or maybe I'll ask it this way, because I think that, just in the interest of transparency, you all have more familiarity on this than I do. It feels a lot more cultural. I shared this on Facebook where there's the card from Mahogany, of all places, that particular line of cards, where it's the Father's Day card to the mother thing, like Paul was talking about. And the other thing I find interesting, and this is one of those things I happened to catch when I was watching TV, the news was on, because I was keeping up on that. I was trying to catch up on what they were talking about, that whole January 6th thing. And I noticed that MSNBC, the liberal station, the left wing news station, they're promoting this thing on Juneteenth, which is on Father's Day, but it's about black women and black women overcoming, and it's like you would actually choose Father's Day on Juneteenth to celebrate the black woman.
Hmm.
It's almost like a diet, kind of low key. It feels almost emasculating. And then they wonder why it is when they talk about in polls and politics, why black men are twice as likely than black women to actually vote Republican.
Hmm.
That's and I know we don't have time to get into all that right now, but I'm saying when we start talking about Father's Day, the role of the black man in the family, there's a general responsibility. It's easy. The low hanging fruit is the man don't want to be responsible, and slavery and all the different repercussions of welfare and all that good stuff. I watched the movie Claudine. It was one of my favorites. I love Diane Carroll, finest woman ever born on the planet. But when we look at the dynamics in the black family, at some point we have to ask ourselves, are black women pushing their children's fathers away, like Andre was saying, because there's a victimhood thing?
Well, you have the I don't need no man. I'm an independent woman. I'm strong, whoop-de-whoop, which a lot of us were raised by and have aunts and what up that are, especially men our age, because that was the rage in the 80s and 90s of not needing no man and, you know, and all of that sort of thing. I would say that it's conditioning. And due to the fact that they could do better without us for a while. Because they wouldn't hire us, and it made sense to keep us away in order to get the government to give them some money.
It's literally the movie Claudine. It's the 70s. It's welfare. It's the reason why they wanted to keep the family separate, because women could get benefits, but not if you got a man in the house. They literally would check and make sure you did not have signs of a man buying you things and doing things for you.
So what comes
but
from
that was then, and this is now.
So that leads to women raising boys who don't respect the men that they're supposed to become. And then we have a cycle of fatherless babies because that's what they expect. My father wasn't there, so I don't got to be there. And it's accepted. It's cultural until we get to this point in history where it's like, no, I'm not letting my kid grow up like that.
There's value. Like, I don't value the influence of a black man.
Exactly.
I don't value the influence.
Well, think about it. Well, think about it. You're taught, we're all taught from an early age to get the answers to anything from a white woman.
Wow.
When your mama drops you off at school and you ask, and she tells you to go learn from, who does she tell you to learn from?
Every teacher I had up until 5th grade, Miss McKenzie, it was Miss Mizell, it was Miss Rothard, it was Miss Bennett, it was all of them. Yes.
So what you literally have from beginning to end is a filter of white women deciding who's worthy of opportunity and access, and the ones who aren't worthy get sent to the black women in the jailhouse.
All right. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. You done brought up Marshall Warfield now. Come on now. Dang.
Which also brings up the court system, which is also stacked against black fathers. Well, I'll say it's stacked against fathers, period, but it particularly affects our community.
Social services. When they send someone to come get your kids, they send a black woman.
Cause you know why though? Because she's strong and she ain't supposed to be scared. She about that life.
She used to dealing with ain't shit people, right?
There you go. Or they assume.
Yeah.
Wow. I guess we're gonna leave that one there for just a second, and but it actually kind of flows into this thing. If you ever hang around people of my ilk, let's talk about the black church.
Oh,
yeah.
One of the things that I have been researching. I pastor a church here in Delaware, so this matters to me in a different kind of way. But the general church as a whole is declining. But if you actually poll people and talk to people, what you'll find is that they're not losing faith. It isn't that they have lost the idea that there is a higher power. They've just completely given up confidence in the church. So the question that I have is specifically in the black church. What is at the root of the lack of confidence in black church? By the way, it's important to note that if you break it down into different segments, the black community actually is still, by and large, more likely to go to church than any of the other counterparts. Mexicans, Asians, white people, black people still they love their Jesus. They not giving up. So the question is, how do we even reconcile that? You still going to church, but the black church is not giving you what you need by looking at our actual communities.
Well, I'm looking at it, and you kind of touched on it, but I'll take it a step further, which is you are correct that black people are not giving up on Jesus, but black people are giving up on quote unquote you, the preachers, the pastors, and things.
Why you got to
like
single
that.
me out?
Well, I wasn't saying you. That's why I was saying quote unquote.
You and your homeboys.
Like, wait a minute.
But well, I mean, but it's like between now, and don't get me wrong, I actually go to a mega church here in Nashville, Tennessee, Mount Zion, which Bishop.
Yeah, you don't get much more Megan than Mount Zion, bro.
But Bishop Joseph Walker is a really, really good man, at least from what I know. Now you always you have these pastor bishop kind of relationships with the congregation. Just based on what I'm getting as far as knowledge from him, he's a good source of information for me. But you also can't ignore the side of these are humans, and some humans are definitely more about them than they are about God. And that's where, like, at first we were just going to church because that's what we were supposed to do. That's what my mom told me to do. You go to church. That's what Sundays is for. You go to church, go have a big dinner, have high blood pressure, go home. Those are the things that you do as a black community. But now, as we've gotten and I'll say this, I guess the best and the worst thing that ever happened to the black church was COVID. Because
say that
it allowed you to see, it broke the routine. It made you sit there and think, this Sunday, what am I supposed to be doing? Like, what can I get God without having to go listen to somebody talk about it for an hour and a half?
Go to a building.
Go to a building. Can I seek my own personal relationship? And I think that, and you see, there are a lot of churches right now that didn't make it out of COVID, and they still not really making it now.
And some of them are still here that not gonna make it.
Right. So I think that's where, the tug and pull is I'd like the fellowship, but I don't necessarily need the fellowship in order to get a relationship with God.
Yeah, to piggyback off of the COVID thing, it's kind of how it's been with work as well. Like, we figured out that we can do what we need to do without dealing with who we don't want to deal with. But to
big facts.
Get back on topic, I have an interesting perspective on this because I was actually born and raised Catholic, but my father's side was in the black church. So I went to both growing up. Right. Then I have spent 10 years in the state of Utah. I never set foot inside the church in Utah, though. But I dealt with the people who did.
You understand the culture, right?
I understand the culture because their culture is outside of the church. It's everywhere. It's totally not just on Sunday between, a couple hours, right?
Right.
Like it's every day, all day. What I would say is consistent with the people I know who have left that church and the people who have left black churches is that it's always the corruption of the mentors, the leaders, the elders, a lot of times it's all got to be around like deviant sexual acts that are being swept under the rug. At least that's what I'm hearing in the LDS church. And I've heard that in every church, not just the black church, but you hear it in the Catholic church with the
and it's been going on for decades. It ain't even new, right?
Yeah. Right. You hear it in it's every church, regardless of who you pray to. The more powerful, the more corruption. And that is turning people off. We expect people who direct us morally to actually live the way they direct us to live too.
Now, so, I was going to ask you, Billy, since this is actually your avenue. So, why do you like? We had shows, real pastors of whatever, religion, whatever. Like like you got the John Grays, you got the different people that seem to put themselves before the actual like congregation and things like that. Like not physically like standing in front of them. I'm talking about like my needs come before yours. Like how did the pastors, I guess, in the church turn from community pillars to rock stars? Because they kind of look like they want to live the rock star life in a lot of these occasions. No matter how big or small the church is, it kind of seems to be the same way.
All right. So let me see if I can do this without preaching. But I'm going to break this down really simple, really quickly here. Number one, fundamentally, if you get down to it, where everything goes wrong with the, as you call them, the superstar preachers, and this is nothing against congregation size or the, because the bigger churches, frankly, are very effective in helping in the community because they have the resources and they have the connections and the networking. That's how they got so big. So there's nothing against the size of the church. And you need somebody who does have good people skills and is charismatic. The problem is it is antithetical. It is completely against Christ to be a superstar. Like just being a superstar in and of itself means you're actually going against in your character what Jesus was like. So that's number one, a conflict. Number two, and this is kind of where you brought up COVID. One of the things that I do here in my congregation locally, and even with other ones that I work with, is helping them to understand that there is actually not coming a time, but it's already kind of shown up or it's pulled up in the driveway. It's here. The four walls of the church, the building itself used to be that rallying point. You talked about that in the community. Too much of the resources are invested in keeping the structure of the ministry staff and the people who clean the building and the plumbing and doing all these outreach programs. Too much of the resources financially are not being put back into the right places. And so that is a lot of what turns people off. And frankly, the money becomes corrupt when there's pressure, right? You don't really know what you're going to do until there's pressure. But I'll take it a step further. One of the things you talk about grinding my gears. This is one of the things that grinds my gears. There are people who will know that a primarily white institution of education has had racist presidents and the people who are in charge, all the administration, they'll know that, and yet they'll still say, send your kids to Yale because you got accepted, or you got accepted to Harvard, you got accepted to these places, because you understand you can get the education without becoming like those men or women who are in charge of those places. We do the same thing with a hospital. We do the same thing with Walmart and other grocery stores and retailers. But when it comes to the church, suddenly I'm turned off because I'm holding these people to a moral standard, when in reality, go there and get what you're supposed to get from it. Go there and get what you're supposed to take from it. I mean, I went to Catholic school. I'm not Catholic. I've never been Catholic. But the fact of the matter is, it was the best education possible. It actually broadened my network in a way that I can't even possibly quantify. I knew what I was getting. And I knew why I was going there. And frankly, we need to treat places of worship the same way. I'm here to worship God. I'm not here to be a part of a club. I'm here to network. I'm here to build on my faith. And if this man got a problem with his wife, or if this person has an issue with their sexuality, or if this person has an issue with money, I have to be able to separate those the same way when I go to Alabama. I don't worship Nick Saban. I'm just here to get my scholarship or get whatever I'm going to get. Another conversation for another day. But the point is, I'm here to get what I'm supposed to get. And too often people deify the leadership and the people who are the preachers and the ministers and the pastors and the bishops and the ones who are up, like you said, over there at Mount Zion. He's a good man, everything you can tell. Well, if he was your best friend or if he were directly mentoring you in some other way, you might know him a little bit differently, but it shouldn't even change your perspective of him when you find these things out, because he's human just like you. He is not above you. The Joel Osteen's and the John Grays and the TD Jake, they're not above you. And that's part of the problem, is that we're always, especially in the Black community, a lot of times we're looking for someone to look up to and not just respect them, but we're actually looking at them, and then we get crushed and disappointed when we find out they're humans just like I am.
Well, part of it, and this talks about coming full circle, because I personally am able still to separate the art from the artist. And that's kind of where I am with how I handle church, but some people can't do that. Like, I mean,
they can't listen to R. Kelly because they just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. Did you see the tape? That wasn't his brother. That was it. Like, dude, can you even appreciate the writing? And that's all I'm saying. Every man in the Bible that you read about, Christ being the lone exception, every man that you read about, if you actually go back and look, they all have real flaws, flaws that you and I can identify with. The goal is not to be flawless. The goal is to grow.
Perfectly said. So one of the things we're going to do weekly on this show is bring out the APB. And that's how we're going to close out this show, because there's some people that we have all identified that we are looking for. And since I am the A in this, I'll go ahead and start off. Kamala Harris, Vice President. Miss AKA I'm Black. I'm for the Black community. I listen to Tupac. Where you been?
Too short.
Too short. Tupac, Snoop, all of them. We was doing the Breakfast Club and we was doing all kinds of stuff at the beginning. But we are 2 years in at this point. And I think they said you was at TSU, Tennessee State University, for the people in Nashville, like a couple weeks ago. But that was probably your first appearance I didn't seen in a good minute. These gas prices is doing some phenomenal things. The stock market is even more phenomenal. We had a whole bunch of ideas. I voted based on y'all saying the student loans was going away. Ain't nothing really happened, and you were supposed to be the person that was going to hold Joe accountable, and it don't seem like there's the math ain't mathing. That's all I'm gonna say, is that the accountability ain't doing it, because I'm in a, don't get me wrong, got great job, got a lovely family, all this, but financially, most of us are in a worse situation than we were under the previous person. Now, I get circumstances are the reason, and but you ain't helping the circumstance, and you ain't showing your face to give me confidence that you're gonna help the circumstance. So what are we looking at for the next couple of years and the next 4 after that? Because you kind of missing. That's my APB.
Wow.
And as the P in the APB, I'll come second, and I'm gonna go a little less light. Take it to sports. Young man down in Miami, Florida, quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa. I've been hearing about how great this kid is for years when he was down at Alabama, and I couldn't see it then. I think he got a lot of credit for things that Jalen Hurts actually did. He threw one pass, and he didn't win another game. He did not win another meaningful game. He has not won a meaningful game since that pass against Georgia that went through a DB's arm, by the way.
And blown coverage. And blown coverage.
Right.
Okay. Now we got him down here in Miami, and he's supposed to be a starter. He's supposed to be a guy. He got my man Flores fired because Flores was a little too hard on him. He demanded that he complete passes to open receivers. He demanded that he read the defenses presented to him pre-snap during the play and be able to regurgitate what happened.
Be a
That was too
professional.
much. So he went upstairs and got my man fired. Now, they got you Tyreek. Tyreek then came down here,
Lord
left
Jesus.
the best in the business, said, you are more accurate, you are better, and he prefers playing with you than the best quarterback in the world.
Blasphemy.
My man, if you ain't at least Joe Burrow next year, I'm on your bumper, puh. I'm on your bumper. That's all I got.
Wow.
Show up to her.
Well, I guess you could say stay with football, but I'm going to broaden it out to a bigger sports lens, and I'm going to finish it up right here. My APB is for those who are coming down hard on guys like Nick Saban in this whole NIL conversation about athletes getting paid. And they're rooting hard, and they're out there clapping it up for Deion Sanders and everything he's doing down at Jackson State. Shout out for Jackson State. But, I went to TSU, and I live here in Dover. I got my Delaware State Hornet shirt on right now. I'm going to need y'all to show up to the game. See, one of the things about the black college experience is everybody shows up, and everybody knows this in the black college football arena. Like, people literally show up to hear the band. They show up because the band is tight, and they want to see the majorettes, and they ready for the batons to be spinning. And don't be wrong, it's the truth. It is an experience like none other. Definitely go if you can. But I'm gonna need y'all to show up for the game, because it's easy to come down hard on this conversation about Nick Saban and the predominantly white colleges and how they have taken all the black talent away from the black colleges. Here's the thing, little inside information. Unfortunately, the alumni of black colleges give back the least compared to their peers and other counterparts. So what I really need to is for people, especially those who've graduated from the black colleges, even if you don't want to send back money to your school, even though you got that great personal education, why don't you show up to a game rather than tweeting and on Facebook sending out little shots talking about how the NIL contracts and the money that these college kids are getting and how, Nick Saban and Dabo and other ones are taking all the money, and then you got mad because of what my man up at Ohio State said about how we need to put what he say, 13 million?
13 million.
13 million. He said we need 13 million to be able to continue to compete. And everybody wants to argue about that. How about you, if you support Deion Sanders, show up to the game. Actually show up and see FAMU play when it's not at the Circle City Classic. Actually show up and see. Come, I'm in Dover. Seriously, I go by there all the time. I drive by because you can see it from right there on 13 on DuPont Highway. Come out to the actual game. Let's do that. That's my APB. Black folks, show up to the actual game. That way they can actually have some NIL money that they can actually finesse around here, and they can compete with their white counterparts in those schools. That's my APB. Show up to a game.
Oh, and lastly, we're going to continue to have this APB out until she comes home. Brittany Griner.
Absolutely.
The people that are charged with trying to or supposed to help get her home, I need them to step up. We all need them to step up. A month and a half to even speak with Brittany Griner's people is ridiculous on his face. We'll get back to Kamala Harris on that one if we want to.
I was just about to say, let's do that.
But we're going to continue to do this weekly until she is brought home. I get it. Mistakes may have been made because I'm still not sure what happened because it's still the Russian government giving us information. But we're going to continue to pray and make sure that she stays safe. There's a petition that you can sign to keep that pressure on. wearebg.org. Go there, sign the name. Let's get this young lady back to the house.
Absolutely. Amen
Yes,
to
sir.
that. Well, that's it. Thank you for taking the time to listen. And we will see you next week. Hopefully, we will make you uncomfortable yet again, make you think. Hopefully, we'll make you smile, make you laugh, make you happy. But most importantly, hopefully, we will be able to shed a little bit of light and a little bit of nuance and give a fresh perspective on what's going on in our world so we can all be a little better and a little kinder to each other. Be blessed.
Absolutely. Check out our website. Keep signing for the light.
Peace.